Roosevelt's Polydans.
10 songs, 42 minutes long.
Yes.
And this is Roosevelt's third album. Now, Roosevelt, I think I may have introduced to you pre-Audioface.
You
you
introduced it to me at the same time that MBE introduced it to me. So it was like, because they were playing it a lot on MBE. Jason Bentley really liked Roosevelt, but I didn't know who he was because I just heard it. I was like, damn, this is really good. And then you should listen. I'm like, that's who that guy is.
Yeah.
It's Roosevelt.
So let's go to the year like 2015, which is basically what we're talking about.
Yeah, because it's the LEDP.
The LEDP came out in 2013, and that was like my first understanding of Roosevelt. You had Elliot Around You in Montreal was one of my favorites, and C. And it's like, okay, what's this sort of like groovy disco kind of thing going on here? And so Roosevelt came out pre-Audioface. That's the name of the first LP, and it's just
self-titled. It's just
like
unbelievable.
If we had an album of the year like nomination list,
it would have been up there.
It was a really nice, and Roosevelt still does this really nice. Roosevelt did and still does this really nice mix of electronic music and dance music in a typical like 4/4 time kind of structure, but a lot of callbacks to disco while also bringing it to in context that's very at home within indie and alternative.
Yeah, because we reviewed Young Romance when that came out a couple years ago.
Yes,
too.
we did.
And I didn't like it as much. It's grown on me now throughout the time I've listened to it. But I didn't think it was as strong as album as it's self-titled. But now moving on to Polydans, and Polydans is unbelievably good.
And Polydans
is very good. On my radar because I always, throughout our time on Audioface, I always like, okay, what's like an early album of the year contender? I was like, maybe Polydans. We'll see. And then listening to it straight through, I was like, holy Jesus, I want to put every single song on our 2021 playlist because they are incredible.
I'm not quite there. I've definitely, because there's 3 albums to work with, I know my ranking right now. Roosevelt number 1, Polydans number 2, and then Young Romance 3. But not perfect album. I still think there's a little bit that can be worked on to achieve like Disclosure, Daft Punk levels of godliness in this realm. But this is a damn fine album. I love the little bit of pushing and experimentation that Roosevelt did with the sound within here. So let's start it off. So it starts off with Easy Way Out. It's a great Rooseveltian intro.
It's a perfect Roosevelt song. It's a great intro piece. Like, it's a little bit longer, but it's like, it gets you into it. It's a feeling for the album. So this one, he's throwing more 80s beats in here, which is interesting because normally it'd be like more 70s throwbacks, more really disco funk heavy, but now he's getting all the 80s influences and even some early 90s influences into his work. And now you can see that he's exploring more and trying different stuff. Voice is even getting better as is too, which is incredible. Great opening track.
Yeah.
And then after that, you get to Strangers, which was one of his singles. I really see these maybe 3 or 4 singles leading up for over like the past year and a half leading up to this album.
Yeah.
So some of them have been out for a long time now.
It's one of those things that makes this podcast very hard for both of us because basically we, on non-recorded Audioface, we decided that Sean's going to be the sacrificial lamb and listen to.
I was going to listen to exactly because normally he didn't. I listened to all of the singles over and over again. I was like, these are incredible, and I'm interesting. And now in the context of the album, it makes sense.
I love that I didn't listen to most of the singles because I think Echoes and or Sign were singles, and I like where they are at the end of the album. But more on that later.
I really want to get on those.
But more on
later.
Later.
Strangers, it's good. It's a slow down track into it, and that's more of that funk beat, and that's a little bit stripped back compared for the production in it. It's not as electronic heavy, so that's more of the experimentation.
A Young Romance song that would have been similar to Strangers probably would have had a little bit more shimmering effects in it. There would have been like more sounds going on.
Exactly.
But a theme of Polydans is, I mean, still very many sounds going on. It's not like Billie Eilish levels of subtracting all the sound in it.
Yeah.
But there's a little bit less, and the individual instruments and the good
pop out more.
Yeah, they pop out more, and the good production of those instruments. Like, it just sounds like a nicely produced record, like the like that high point in the 70s and 80s where everything just sounded really crisp.
Yeah, and then after that, you got Feels Right, which then gets into like the real sound of the album is Feels Right. It gets into that more 80s theme of just beautifully produced. The crescendo towards the middle of the album, it's just very, very well written.
So my worries, I mean, I'll take New Roosevelt wherever I can get it. I'm very happy to, but my worries with the first 3 songs were like, yep, this is Roosevelt. Absolutely, this is Roosevelt. Where's the more? Where is the more? And surprisingly, even though Closer to My Heart is not like the style of dance song I would generally enjoy, I felt like once you got to that song, you're starting to see Roosevelt kind of like expand.
Exactly, because that's what I was going to say too. Once you get to Closer to Your Heart, that's when he really starts to use his voice and really gets into more of the lyricism and stuff, and not just like dancing groove trick. Now you're getting into more interpersonal relationships and stuff that he's explored a little bit here and there, but before on Young Love and his self-titled. But now it's like that's definitely a theme into this, which I mean, it's overdone, but it's not bad for him. Where it's now he's getting to a theme, and now it's trying to expand upon that.
Yeah. Then
you get to some interesting shit.
Yes. So Montjuic
Montjuic is
it's like
an
a
instrumental thingy leading up to Forget.
Yeah, and it helps, I guess, bridge two sides of the album.
Because you needed that little bridge, because then it gets into his really experimental side, because Forget goes fucking hard. Holy shit. Because this was not a single. So this is my first time listening to it. I was in the car driving getting home from work, so I was like, more. I'm gonna blow up my
especially
speakers.
with Montjuic the intro.
Yeah, because Montjuic is like, ooh, this is interesting. And then it goes straight to Forget, and oh my god, I love it.
Forget is where, like, if I'm the person here and I am the person here grading Roosevelt on how much he's improved, this is where he scores high marks, because it's a build-up, slower build-up, like crescendo crash thing. And electronic music and alternative music and indie music, there's a very fun things to do, and something that Roosevelt actually hasn't explored that much.
No,
like I would say the closest
little
thing would be there's a breakdown near the like middle end of Night Moves.
It was yeah.
But other than that, there's nothing similar to this. I like how, especially with this album, the percussion is so stylish and like particularly distinct. You have all these different types of alternative things you wouldn't usually hear in their like congas and stuff in the background, kind of making up the drum line as it all crashes in the middle of the song. It's a really nice piece, and it keeps its like kind of future 80s beat, like bass beat to the entire thing as a
and it doesn't get overbearing either, because a beat that repeats over and over again is you thought you would get annoying, but it's great with that. After that, you get See You Again, which is actually reminding me a bit of Foster the People, because of like the really high-pitched voice going over it, but then it sounds like if Roosevelt tried to make a Foster the People track, which is really weird, but it's him experimenting more and stuff, and again, getting more into that theme of love and interpersonal relationships and stuff, and you hear that more in the lyrics throughout it too, but it's good. It's a good track as well.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed with that. Lovers, and it's sort of like closer to my heart in that way, where it's really Roosevelt shining with his instrumentals in a way, but also lyrically in the way he's singing. I didn't pay much attention to the way he was singing, but I think you can now, upon like third or fourth listen, you can tell he's getting, vocal range is still about the same, but he's getting more comfortable within that range.
Yes. He's really like solidifying that this is his bread and butter with the range and stuff. You can tell him getting more comfortable as well. And then you get the last two tracks, Echoes, which I've been wanting to talk about forever on this podcast, because Jesus Christ, I don't know how many times I've listened to this in the past year.
It's a damn good song. It's a very good song.
It is one of my favorite songs I've listened to in a long time, where it's just, whenever I'm like, I don't know what to listen to, I'm like, Echoes. There you go.
Yeah, it's your whole music song. Like my brain's whole music song is Shiny Collarbone by the 1975.
Which
is like a random funky beat.
It's like a random funky beat, exactly. And Shiny Collarbone goes hard. And Echoes for me, just like, boom, whatever I need, just boom, I put in Echoes. And that is the last two tracks actually are some of the best ending tracks I've had on Audioface, which is saying something, because we always have really good ending tracks. But it shows off Roosevelt's best work, I think, to date for these last two tracks, because it's all of his experimentation wrapped up into two, plus all of his earlier sounds wrapped up into two tracks. So it's like a combination of everything that he's worked on before. So
like Echoes feels very much like the first album a lot. I'm sorry, I've got confused. Sign feels like the first album. Echoes feels, I mean, actually, no. I had it right the first time. Echoes feels like the first, Sign feels like the second.
Yes, and it's interesting because it still is perfect in this context of this album and as ending tracks, which is very hard to do. You're calling back to your previous sounds, but proving upon that, which is something that we always tell you to do on Audioface, like make different shit, try to improve upon yourself while staying true to yourself as an artist, which is very difficult to do. But
I think Roosevelt did a very good job. The blessing and the curse with how the last two songs ended the album is that Roosevelt's got a very, very established sound. And that album 1 and album 2 have their own sort of distinct sounds within them, but it works out to a good enough way in this third album to where you can do that callback to the previous work while still making your new album sound good. I am very curious about Roosevelt's fourth album.
I know this fourth album is going to be very telling to me. If it's something that he really experiments more and does like a different sound, pulls a disclosure and just does something completely different, then he's going to be on that god tier of artists.
Yeah.
He's like hinging on that.
Because the thing he's hinging on is I'm toughest to the artist I like the most.
These
three albums that you have, that's the sound. He can't really do much more of that sound anymore in another album without it sounding like, okay, we've seen what you can do now. Let's want something more. I don't want to be in the position where I'm listening to Roosevelt's fourth album going, okay, this is cool. The fifth better be different, because that's not a great situation to be in. While I guess my one complaint is that I want to see more of Roosevelt's push, I can say that I got a lot of it in this album already.
Yeah, and remember, he's also spaced out his albums pretty closely together. Because Roosevelt came at the end of 2016, Young Romance came in 2019, this one came in 2021. So you're having something to where now I want a little bit longer space between works just to see him develop his sound a little bit more and to experiment more as well.
Yeah, so also get a proper tour cycle out of this one probably. So
yeah, I'm hoping that too as well. And then within there, when you tour, you can get more inspirations and stuff too. So
that'll make a lot of things great. But while we are here, Polydans is a truly awesome record.
Great album.
Great birthday gift for me. Arbitrary Scale this week. Brought to you, whether they like it or not, by the Hyundai Kia Group Genesis. And the Genesis Open.
And the Genesis Open.
And for those who don't know what we're talking about, it's a golf tournament called the Genesis Open, brought to you by Hyundai Kia's new luxury brand of cars, Genesis.
Yes.
We were actually at the Genesis Open last year. Back when you could go outside and do things.
Beautiful golf course.
Wonderful golf course. Hell of a job. Tiger had interesting years both last year and this year. But, in the arc of Tiger Woods' career, not bad. This year was a little different because while driving one of those Genesis vehicles through the hills of coastal Los Angeles County, he crashed his car and injured several of his extremities. So
he ate shit.
Yeah. We of course at Audioface, before the bodies are even cold, hope our best for Tiger Woods and his long recovery. That being said,
Genesis vehicles are arbitrary scale, so I'm giving this a solid G70.
Yeah, this is the G70.
This is the G70.
Actually, no. This is the 2014 Hyundai Genesis Sport Coupe.
Okay, yeah,
the one where they were like, this one's got sauce.
Yeah, that's the Infinity Killer.
Yeah,
that's the one that Infinity saw. Like, oh shit, we might need to redesign our cars, and they're like, no, let's just get rid of the QX30 and leave everything the same.
No, keep everything the same. Those SUVs that we haven't refreshed for the past 10 years, perfect. Solid. Why not?
Your best vehicle, a QX30, just continue that. You don't need that anymore.
Americans barely care about SUVs anyways. They won't notice the details about things that are 10 years old. Should work for them.
Jesus Christ.